Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I am Michael Warren, 40 years old, a financial planner, and today I would have been single again. My late soon-to-be former wife had shown that I couldn't trust her or believe her, so I divorced her. It would have been final today. Leah McCall was a junior transfer from a community college. She was in my business ethics class. I was a senior needing 2 classes to get my degree. I was taking this class as part of my major, and because I liked the way the professor gave his lectures. She sat down next to me during the first lecture of the class. I looked over at her and liked what I saw. She appeared to be petite, had a wonderful smile, and the prettiest blue eyes I had seen since my younger sister died. I was 24 and had taken a couple of years between high school and college to help my family to pay some of the medical bills for my younger sister, Emma. The bills were for treatment for her injuries caused by the rich drugged-up a-hole who managed to kill himself when he ran the red light and T-boned Emma's compact car. Mom and Dad eventually got a sizable award from the idiot's estate after Emma died, but it was hard times until the lawsuits were settled. Because of Emma's age and the a-hole's drugged state at the time of the accident, my folks received a more than $12 million, tax-free, settlement. Leah was talkative and told me she was 21, and that she had won the birthday lottery and had not yet turned 5 when she started school. Once the professor started the class, she quieted down and listened and took a lot of notes. After the lecture was finished, and we were exiting the classroom, she asked me why I didn't take notes. I said, I have a secret weapon. I pulled my pocket recorder out. I continued, I record every lecture and always sit in the front row so I don't miss anything. I asked if she would join me for a cup of coffee. She said sure. As we walked to the coffee shop just off campus, I told her about my family and she told me about hers. She had a younger sister who was a senior in high school and mom. Dad decided to leave for greener pastures when Elizabeth, her sister, turned 16. That did not work out so well for him. The greener pastures husband killed him and her just 2 months after he left. We had our coffee and another. We ended talking for almost 2 hours. I asked for her, and she agreed to go on a date. We decided to go to a dance club that was near the campus. Leah was living in the dorms, and I had an apartment just off campus. I told her if she did not want to walk, I would pick her up at 7 o'clock and take her to dinner. She said that dinner sounded good, but that I was not to go overboard because she understood that college kids did not normally roll in money. I laughed and told her my major was all about money management, and I would be prudent. I did not tell her that my parents gave me back all the money I had spent on my sister, and they paid for all of my college expenses, so I was not a struggling college student. We went to a local upscale Italian restaurant. I had calamari and Leah had veal scallopini. We had Chianti, of course, and unlike most Italian places, this wine did not taste like red varnish. The dinner was a smash, and Leah had a tiramisu and I had gelato for dessert. It was a wonderful evening. When we finished dinner and danced ourselves out, I took her back to the dorm and we kissed. Then she said, we did not have to come right back here. I replied, maybe not, however. I want to take you out again, and I plan on a long, slow courtship. I want to see where we may end up. This was a wonderful beginning. It turned out to be a wonderful courtship while it lasted. We dated for the entire school year. That summer after I graduated, I found a job with a local insurance agency, and Leah went back home for the summer. Sometime during the summer, my calls were not being returned. I was not raised a dummy and realized that Leah had moved on. I was sad and put out that she did not tell me, but went on with my life. The insurance thing did not work out, but after 6 months, when I showed a disposition for investments, I moved to a financial planning and brokerage house that was affiliated with the company. I got a raise and a bigger commission. For someone under 30, I was doing great. I had been with the company for about 18 months when Leah called me. The first thing she asked was, why did you stop calling me that summer? To which I heatedly responded, after you failed to return my calls for the 3rd week in a row, I got the message. Now did that romance end so you could come slumming again? I got a flash on my phone, call ended 47 seconds. That did not end it. She was at my office the next morning. I walked past her and opened my door and stepped aside so she could come in. I closed the door behind her. I would offer you something to drink, but my common courtesy left when I was hung up on last evening. What can I do for you, Miss McCall? Or is it Mrs. now? She was irate. You can stop being a horse's butt. I know I made a big mistake, but I came to apologize, and I haven't been able to because you are so mad at me. I'm not mad at you. I got over that 2 weeks after you failed to tell me we were through, and even before you didn't return my 3rd missed call that summer. If I treated you as bad as you treated me, I apologize. Now that that is out of the way, why are you here? I told you I came to apologize, and it isn't Mrs., it is still Miss McCall. I made a terrible mistake that summer. and I am sorry I was too chicken to tell you I was dating other guys. That is ancient history. I have gotten over it and moved on with my life. I accept your apology. Have a nice day." With that, I got up and held open the door. Leah stood up, walked over, and took the door out of my hand and closed it again. She screamed, "You sanctimonious prick. Didn't you ever make a mistake in a relationship?" I angrily came back with, "Of course I have, but I always let the person know I was moving on. I can't say that I was surprised that you moved on, but I was and am put out that you did not have the courtesy to tell me that. Now this conversation is becoming circular. If you are done apologizing, this is my place of business and I have paper to shuffle. Please show yourself out." It was a good thing she had closed the door, because the swearing and vitriol that came out her mouth was epic. This was from a woman that never even said damn when we were dating. As she wound down, I called security and had her escorted out. I shuffled paper for the rest of the unproductive day. I finally left a couple of hours early and stopped at a local pub for a beer. While sitting at the bar, I realized that I still had feelings for Leah McCall and that I was probably piling on this morning. After I finished my beer, I went home and called the number that she had called from. The call informed me that the number was unavailable. I assumed that Leah had turned her phone off. I figured that the actions from today were enough to put me off all woman for maybe a week. Off Leah, probably forever. Well, good intentions and all that. Leah wrote me a letter and addressed it to my office. "Michael, it seems I have spent the last few years realizing I made a mistake and the last few days apologizing for those mistakes. What I did and said in your office was unfair, spiteful, and after going over it in my head, disgusting. This letter is an attempt to tell you what I have been trying to say verbally, but without the embarrassment and the anger that I spouted in person. I made several mistakes that summer when I did not return your calls. First, of course, was not telling you. Second was serial dating a-holes that summer and during the next school year. Yes, there was more than one. There was even more than 5. Not one of them was you. Not one of them was even worthy of wiping the dirt off your shoes. I understand now why I did it, but at the time it was just because you were not there. Not one of them even got a glimpse at my underwear. I was afraid of my feelings for you. If you had asked me to marry you before I went home that summer, I would have said yes. When you were not there, I felt the emptiness, and that's when the fear came. I started dating some of my old high school classmates. When you stopped calling, I knew that I had destroyed the thing I wanted most. I started to unconsciously look for a-holes, and did I ever find them? One guy was married. His wife gave me a broken tooth and a fat lip before she destroyed his penis and testicles with several well-placed kicks. Another guy wanted to have me accompany him to a swingers party. He lasted 2 dates. Once school started back up, I was invited by one guy to a frat dog show. Naive me thought that we would see some cute animals. The animals were there all right. They were the frat brothers. The dog show was a frat contest to see who could bring the ugliest girl to the party. I escorted all of the girls out of there once I found out the truth. There were others, but either they or I had so much baggage that they didn't work out. Those 3 were the worst. Anyway, shortly after the frat party, I sought out professional help. I found a good therapist, and she led me to discover the fear of my feelings that I had for you and that I was running away from those feelings. She showed me that my not returning your calls was because of my fears and not because I was no longer interested. I realized that my actions in your office were out of line, and I apologize for that. It seems that all I am doing is apologizing to you. I would like a chance to start over again. Please call me if we can do that. Leah." I read that letter and sat on it for a couple of days. I was still upset with her outburst and wanted to let my feelings settle down a little before I responded. There was no question in my mind I was going to respond, but it was how I was going to respond that I needed to think about. "Miss McCall, I accepted your apologies. I even told you so. Perhaps you even remember that I told you so. Now if I were writing this to my sweet Leah, it would go like this. I have strong feelings for you, dear, but I was and still am hurt by your past actions. I know I accepted the apology, but the hurt is still there. I was indeed thinking of marriage when you decided to drop me. Now, even if we get back together, I will not ask. I have lost a lot of my trust in you. I would like to go out with you again, but it would have to be strictly non-exclusive. I have to be able to not worry if you are dating someone else when you aren't with me. If we are not exclusive, I don't have to care if you're with someone else. You have to decide if you can live with that. If you think you could abide with that, you can call and let me know. Or, you could just do what you wish and not tell me like last time. Either way, I really am over the mad, just not the hurt. As I said before, I was a few weeks away from asking you to marry me. Michael." I read it and decided that there was enough anger in there to let her know what I was thinking without shutting all of the doors on my end. I thought that if she called or came to see me, we had a chance. I mailed the letter. Well, the result of the letter was not what I expected. I expected one of two actions, with three possible results. I mostly expected Leah to just kiss me off in her mind and ignore me and go on with her life. If that didn't happen, I expected her to call, write, or show up in person. If she showed up, she would be either contrite or angry. None of that happened. What happened was she started stalking me. She tried to be invisible, but she hadn't thought it out too well. At the time, I was living in the country on a farm I bought with the intention of raising horses. The road I lived on was over 7 miles of 2-lane gravel, and a major traffic rush was 4 cars a day. A car following me for a week straight was noticeable, especially when the car is a lime green Volkswagen New Betrayal. I decided two could play those games, and I started following her as she was trying to find me. She did not catch on as I had purchased 2 vehicles and switched them daily. I normally only drove my sedan when I wasn't doing farm work. I drove the pickup when I needed to go get supplies. About a week into not finding me, she finally called. "Michael, where have you been this past week? I could not find your car at your office. I know you figured out I was following you, but it was only because I was trying to work up the courage to tell you I want us together again. If it has to be on your terms, then that is what it will have to be." I thought of a perfect solution, and I thought a damn funny one. "Okay, but on my terms, but the first non-return call, and we are done for good. I realize that there are times when you won't be able to answer your phone, but I will always leave a callback number and message, even if it's to just say I called. Now would you like to go to dinner this Friday? Of course, where and how dressy? I was thinking of maybe going to that old monastery that has been converted into a fancy gourmet restaurant. If you say okay, it is a dress for the woman and a suit and tie for the man. Still want to go?" "Yes," she squealed. "I have just the dress to wear. I have wanted to wear it for you ever since I found you again. What time?" "I will make reservations for 7 o'clock, and we'll be at your place at 6:15, unless you would like to see the farm you have driven past. It is mine and I live there. I don't think I want to see it on our first date back together. Maybe Saturday?" "Sounds like a plan. See you then." What I didn't tell her was I would pick her up in my farm truck. I would not drive that to the restaurant, but would park my BMW Series 7 sedan at my office, and we would switch vehicles there. That is why I told her 45 minutes early for a 10-minute drive. I expected a semi-playful slug on the arm when I drove up to my sedan, but I did not know what her reaction would be to the truck. When I pulled up to her house, she took a look at the truck, at me, at the truck, at me, and got a crestfallen look on her face. I deliberately did not wash the truck on the outside, but I was not so cruel as to leave the inside a mess that might hurt her dress. What she did not know was my 1950 F1 Ford was a hot rod. The inside was better than any car on the market, and the bucket seats just about massaged your back when you sat in them. The engine was a Ford 289 with twin 4-barrel carbs, mated to a Muncie 4-speed transmission. I opened the door for her and helped her in, taking care to protect her dress from the dirt. When we got to my office and she saw my Beamer, she did slug me. She also said that the truck was much nicer than it looked. The dinner was superb. We talked, and I found out she was working for a large property management firm and was in charge of a large complex that just started renting units in town. Just like our first date, I took her home after the planned stuff was finished. We kissed, and she invited me in. I declined, citing the fact that we were not that far back in our relationship yet. Then I asked what time she wanted me to pick her up for the farm tour. "I'll drive out. I know where it is." Then she laughed and asked, "How long did it take you to figure out I was following you?" 2 days. Cars like yours are rare, but one time would not raise my eyebrow. The second time I knew it was you. After that week, I started to follow you. I switched the Beamer and the pickup every day. With that, I left and went home. Well, the next morning, my pickup came driving down the road as I was feeding the horses. That scamp, she must have picked my pocket for the keys. The truck was washed and waxed and looked as good as when it came out of the paint booth. Leah jumped down from the driver's seat with a big laugh. "Man, you know how to build a truck. That thing is too good to be a farm truck." After she settled down, Leah went back to the truck and got a small suitcase out of the truck. "I brought some grubbies to walk in the fields and to mess with the horses. Where can I change after the tour of your mansion?" I showed her the house, and after she changed into her grubbies, we went to tour the farm. She was impressed with the machine shed, as I had a 34 Ford sedan on blocks awaiting work. We went from there to the horse barn. The horses, being curious and friendly, came into their feed stalls and waited for treats and pets. Out from under the feed rack scampered my resident troublemaker and professional Mauser Catalpa, my big black barn cat. Leah got sniffs, then the leg rubbing that indicated that she was approved of. I commented that she seemed very comfortable with the animals. "I always wanted to live on a farm and enjoy clean air and beautiful animals," she replied. Just then my gentle giants, Ethan and Brooke, my Belgian draft horses, came into the barn. Leah's eyes got the size of golf balls. She jumped about a foot when Ethan whinnied that he wanted attention too. I went over to the feed storage area and grabbed a handful of carrots. I asked Leah if she wanted to give Ethan one. She just about wet her pants with excitement. Ethan took the carrot and snorted, shook his head, and came back for more. Brooke gave a snort as if to say, "Where is mine?" After we treated all of the horses, we went out and got on a UTV, and I drove Leah all over my section and a half of pastures. I had all of it in clover and alfalfa. A neighbor was leasing it, and I was to get enough hay for my horses to feed for a year. 8 horses eat a lot of hay. After the day at the farm, Leah never turned down a date without explaining why, and they were mostly family or work obligations. It looked like we were exclusive even without saying we were. We dated about 8 months, and Leah asked me to marry her. I know you said you would not ask me, so I am asking you. Michael Warren, the love of my life. Will you marry me? Of course, sweetie. I have loved you even when I was mad or hurt. I never stopped loving you. I needed you to decide that this was what you wanted. I will marry you tomorrow if that is what you want. The wedding planning was interrupted when my folks both died from carbon monoxide poisoning, when the furnace at their house developed a serious chimney pipe crack. The furnace room was on the opposite side of their bedroom wall, and the gases leaked under the plasterboard. It was a serious shock. First my sister, then my parents. After the funerals, I went silent for a few weeks. Leah was right there for me through it all. She even was there at the coroner's inquest where it was determined that it was an accident caused by an avoidable failure of the chimney pipe. About 2 months after that, as I was coming out of my funk, my parents' lawyer called about the wills. He stated that only I could be there as I was still unmarried. It turns out that after all of the charities were taken care of, and a memorial scholarship was set up in Emma's name at the local high school, I received the rest of the estate in the form of a trust fund that would pay me a generous stipend for the rest of my life. The trust also bought my farm, my vehicles, and any other real property that I might purchase in the future. The lawyer explained that it was in my best interest to do it that way. He pointed out that the trust could not be attached by the local and state courts in a lawsuit or a divorce. I went with his advice and ended up with almost $1 million cash for the farm and my cars and truck. I also received the deed for the house my parents owned. I had the house repaired, a new furnace and chimney put in, and rented the place out to a young couple. I made sure they knew what had happened so that they would not be shocked by gossipy neighbors. The wedding plans resumed after about 4 months. We decided on a small family-only ceremony. It was a somewhat rushed affair, as Leah got more and more anxious to be married. It was still a wonderful day. We decided to honeymoon in Florida. We spent a week in Tampa and a week in the Keys. Leah tried and fell in love with golf. She loved the Gulf Coast, and I bought a condo right on the bay. It was our getaway place. For 2 people in their late 20s and early 30s, we had it made financially. We tried for a couple of years to have kids, and when it wasn't happening, we had ourselves checked out. It turns out Leah was sterile. She was having periods, but the eggs were not viable. She really was not at all put out by that. She admitted that the findings took a lot of pressure off and allowed our lovemaking to be about love, not making children. We lived on the farm for 6 years until Leah got a job promotion offer in Tampa. It was a substantial move up in her career. She would be in charge of a 1,200-unit apartment condo complex as the unit manager. I rented the farm out to the oldest son of the neighbor who leases the farmland. George, the son, had been helping me with the horses all along and had just gotten married when Leah got the job offer. It solved that problem and set my mind at ease about the welfare of my horses. We moved to our condo, and I opened a small office for financial planning. I had received my certification and had pursued an MBA online. I was awarded that a year before the move. My business had very normal hours, and clients came to me. I was the darling of the blue hair set, as there were and are a large portion of the population over 50 in the area. I was prudent, but produced very good returns for my clients. Leah's job, on the other hand, often had emergency hours, at least according to Leah. Her company did a poor job of checking references and got a lot of college-age rich kids looking to party. For the first 18 months, until she could refuse to renew leases on the worst of the partiers, she was at the complex most Friday and Saturday nights and a lot of Sunday mornings. Once those problems were resolved, her hours became much more normal. That is up until about 4 months ago. She was starting to get calls to go to the complex a couple of nights a week. At the same time, she started to become indifferent at home. Not mean, not angry, but certainly not loving and open. Then last week, she informed me that the corporation officers were going to come to town to have a company dinner for the complex's staff. She told me it was employees only, and she would be home by 11 o'clock. I, being the clueless man, did not think anything of it. One of my major clients called and wanted to take us to dinner as a reward for the great returns his portfolio had the past year. I explained that I would love to go, but my wife had a corporate function to go to that same night. We made plans to go to the local beachfront DoubleTree, as they had an excellent restaurant on site. When we walked in and were seated, I looked up from the menu and Leah walked in with one of her staff. He was a member of the maintenance staff and in charge of maintenance of all of the condo maintenance. He was also 5 years younger than Leah. She had not seen me, as when they were being seated, she sat next to James instead of across from him. I watched them, and as no one else showed up, and Leah was not wearing the same clothes she wore out to go to the corporate dinner, I knew then that my marriage was over. I decided to end the charade, so I begged off from my client and went over to their table. Leah started to tear up. James looked defiant. It's good to see that all of the corporate bigwigs are at this dinner, Leah. Please do not make excuses or apologies. Just move your stuff out tomorrow. I will see the lawyers in the morning. Then I looked at James. Don't you dare smirk at me. You are going to be named in the divorce papers, and your pregnant wife will have your nuts in a sack for you to carry for the rest of your life. You want some of me a hole? Get up and follow me out. With that I turned around and walked out. Leah called after me, but I kept on going. The next morning when I called the lawyers, I got the information I expected. The lawyers told me that as Florida is a no-fault divorce state, the normal asset split is 50-50 except when adultery is presumed and listed. I told them that I did not care about the split as the only assets were my business and would sell that and give her half. I told them to file. Leah quit her job and made it extremely hard to serve the papers as she was never in one place at the same time. Leah of course moved out and retained her own lawyer, and we were able to serve him, so she finally had to answer the petition for divorce. She decided to fight it. I changed the reason to adultery and presented a 75-25 in my favor split of assets without my business. I did put in the settlement offer she could have the condo, as I had never put that in the trust's assets. I planned on moving back to the farm. There was no counteroffer, just a demand for counseling and a face-to-face meeting. I told my lawyers to tell her lawyers that we would see them in court. While we were waiting for the court date, I was approached by a major corporate firm in the city wanting to buy my business. I sold it for $100 and a large block of non-voting preferred stock. They were flabbergasted until I explained about the pending divorce. I also accepted a temporary position as transition manager to assist my customers to move to the new owners or assist them in finding a new manager for their funds. We finally got a court date, and Leah's lawyer got a continuance. The next date, the same thing. I finally told my lawyers to withdraw the petition. I then told my lawyers that they were to inform her lawyers that I was leaving the area in 30 days, so they needed to either be in court before then, or it would become moot when I was out of their jurisdiction. We got a court date. They wanted counseling. I said no. The judge said yes. I spent 15 days in jail for contempt of court. We went before the judge again. This time I offered her everything except the stock. We had almost $250,000 in savings, some other stocks and the condo. All in all, if she agreed, she would be worth almost $1 million. They wanted counseling. 15 days later, I offered nothing except the condo. They wanted counseling. This time the judge got mad at both sides and the lawyers went to jail for 10 days. The next date, they only asked for the last offer and a 1/2-hour meeting between Leah and I. I talked to my lawyers and told them to counter with a signature on the papers, then both sides' lawyers present at the meeting. They agreed. The meeting was set up for a weekday morning. I walked into the meeting with my legal team. Leah was already there with her lawyer. I opened things up. Until I have the signed divorce papers, this meeting is not starting, and if they are not produced in the next 60 seconds, I am leaving and I will be out of the area by dark. Here are the ownership papers for the condo. I am relinquishing claim to it as soon as the completed papers are in my hand. With that, I took a lighter out of my pocket and ignited it and held up the condo deed. The papers appeared and Leah signed them. I started in again. I know your side wanted this meeting, Leah, but I am going to open it. I only have one question. Why did you throw away our marriage to have sex with someone else? Leah recoiled as if she had been slapped. Then she started to sob. I sat down and waited, but I put a cheap kitchen timer on the table after I set it to 30 minutes. I did not say anything, but everyone could hear the ticking. After she got herself under control, and as the timer approached 25 minutes, she said, I did it because I was excited by the illicit and wrong-feeling nature of James. He was not the only one, just the one you caught me with again. When I started to do this, I seemed to pick a-holes. James was gone after that night, and his wife has no idea where to send the divorce papers. I still loved you. No, I still love you. But I realize that I have hurt you way too much for you to forgive me this time. She continued. There were no emergency problems. I laughed when you believed that as I screwed almost half the men in the complex. I didn't do it to hurt you. I did it because I could. When I was doing it, you were not even in my mind. I don't want the condo, but I will take it and sell it for enough money to go away. I won't go back to the farm or to my family. I will find a therapist wherever I land and find out why I have to hurt you and do these self-destructive things. She sighed. You got your divorce and I am now out of your life. I took my copies of the papers, and the messenger that was waiting took the court copies. I slid the condo deed over, and my lawyers and I left. The messenger delivered the papers to my new mobile home on a far corner of the farm. I did not have the desire or the heart to move the renters out. I even offered to sell them the house and a couple of acres if they wanted it. They informed me they would be moving out to his father's farm next year and wanted to continue with the lease agreement for the forage crops. I agreed. I opened the papers, and there was a notice from the Tampa newspaper dated 3 days ago. A local businesswoman and a local man shot and killed. The article went on to say that Leah Warren, 36, and Mark Calloway, 32, were shot and killed last night. The alleged shooter, the wife of Mark Calloway, was arrested at the scene. They were at the condo owned by Ms. Warren, a divorcee and manager of an apartment and condo complex in St. Petersburg. Well, I never wanted it to end like that. But Leah found the ultimate a-hole, and it cost her. Life is a journey, and not always a long one. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.